Everyone is speaking out against this. As the Magic slide to an early 3-5 record on the season, the criticisms of star Paolo Banchero are only growing louder, and Magic fans have something to say about it. I have a few words myself that will hopefully shed some light and some balance on these criticisms. But first, let me welcome you all back to the Magic Digest channel. I'm your host, Sam Rodriguez, back with another video. Now, if you guys are unsubscribed to the channel, you know what I'm going to say. Take a moment, stop, hit that subscribe button so you can stay locked in with us here at Magic Digest. Now, I know this is not the start to the season that we were all hoping for, but if you need a place to vent, this is the safe space to do so. Head to those comments and just please let it all out. I love hearing what y'all have to say, and I appreciate everyone supporting in the comments. That being said, before we get into this Paolo conversation, I wanted to just make a correction to something I said last night in my video about Desmond Bain getting ejected, which was bananas. But anyway, I had said that Mo Gay, who Desmond Bain got into a slight little altercation with after or before rather he got ejected, that Mo Gay was a former Magic player. That is not true. I was thinking back to a video where the Magic actually acquired Mo Gay in a mock trade. So that's on me. Thank you to whoever called that out in the comments. I appreciate that. We have to hold each other accountable here on Magic Digest. So, speaking of holding people accountable, I want to address the recent comments made by Kevin O'Connor and Adam Mares on Kevin O'Connor's podcast regarding Paolo Banchero. So let me just pull up this graphic here. Adam Mares called Paulo, quote, an atrocious shooter, with bad shot selection. And then Kevin O'Connor followed that up by saying that Paulo is, quote, missing something between the ears. Now, like many of you, I found these comments to be egregious, right? It's crazy to think, but Paolo was only a third year player, and he was obviously sidelined for half of the year last year with that oblique tear. So, I want to give him just a little bit of grace for that. But I want to just try and break down these comments a bit here, more specifically with regards to the atrocious shooting. So let's just get the 3-point shooting out of the way, right? Yes, Paolo's 3-point shooting is pretty atrocious. Granted, he was never really a 3-point shooter to begin with, but this season he's shooting 24%. That is, in fact, a career low, but the Magic as a whole are shooting 33%. We know the story. We've talked about the story. They're not a good 3-point shooting team. They continue to be a bad 3-point shooting team. Let's move on. Um, Getting back to Paolo's shooting, right? On the surface, we can argue that Paolo is, in fact, a good shooter, as many people argued on Twitter, and I will always call it Twitter. Sorry to the X users, but they argued that Paolo has an exceptional true shooting percentage, and in terms of his shot selection, he's taking most of his shots at or close to the rim. You can see some of the stats from this tweet here, a career high amount, in fact, in terms of shots at the rim, and a career low from mid range. So the question is, what are Kevin O'Connor and Adam Mares talking about? So I think if you're looking for a more balanced take on these criticisms on Paolo Banchero and how he's performing this season, how he's been performing throughout his career, Michael Pina of The Ringer actually wrote an article that I found uh, incredibly helpful. While we're talking about Paulo and where he's shooting from, Pina alludes to that as well, but he specifically writes that Banchero's problem is based more on how and when he takes his field goals, not necessarily where they come from, right? It's one thing to shoot poorly, it's another to turn down a good shot so that you can burp up something much worse. We're talking about forced, erratic, low probability attempts that are the midnight snack Banchero absolutely must cut from his diet. Isolation plays where he surrenders high ground instead of leveraging the physical advantages that make the 6'10", 250-pound forward unguardable. Now, I'm going to try to simplify this article as best as I can for you guys. This iteration of Paolo is essentially best when A, he's working in tandem with Desmond Bain, utilizing screens, the pick and roll, creating that space that this Magic team so desperately needs, or B, when he's off the ball and still undeniably attracting those double, triple teams, allowing teammates to be open. It is when Paolo is the one orchestrating the offense, specifically in the half court, that the offense becomes very stagnant, very predictable. You have more of those Paolo drives that feel a bit forced, those sort of like baseline fadeaways that he's missing a fair amount. But again, this is a multifaceted issue that is happening with Paolo, with the rest of the team, right? It's not just about Paolo taking maybe rushed or contested shots. This is about Desmond Bain being in an unfathomable shooting slump. And last night, was the worst game I had seen from him so far in the season. And again, you can see how he's been performing over the last um 4 games, but there were just so many possessions in that game against the Hawks last night where Bain was just dribbling into the chest of one or two defenders, which ultimately results in a turnover. And they had quite a bit last night. Um, as we know, Bain was acquired to be a good 3-point shooter, to create that space. And we have not seen any of that. Not to mention, nobody else is really taking that leap as a 3-point shooter. Franz looks great, sure, but I wouldn't exactly consider Franz a threat from three at this point. So opposing defenses are just so focused on Paolo, again, making the offense very, very predictable. Now, Paolo's size and strength, thank goodness he has the tools that give him the ability to sort of power to the basket, and he spends a lot of time at the free throw line, but this is just not a sustainable way for your offense to run. But it's also about the defense not playing to the best of their ability, right? This was a top two defense in the league with three of their best players injured for a good portion of the season. They've dropped since then. Still good, but just not clearly, not nearly as effective as they were last year. The identity of this team is just nowhere to be found. And that is one thing that the Magic have had in the past. They had an identity, their defense, their grit. Jonathan Isaac is only averaging, what, 8 minutes per game? Speaking of which, it's about the revolving door of lineups that Coach Mosley rolls out. We're talking 10 players in the first quarter played last night. Not to mention, believe it or not, there is still some unfamiliarity in that starting lineup with Paolo Suggs and Franz. They only played 6 games together last season, and it's not some coincidence that the best season that this team has had was that 2023-2024 season when their big three each played more than 70 games, and Paolo and Suggs both shot their career best um, from three. But now you add in Desmond Bain, who is both completely a shell of himself out there and not being utilized correctly or consistently enough. And it's really a shame because Paolo has never played with anyone like Desmond Bain before. So on paper, this should be working, right? Which is why so many people had the Magic making the finals, being a top three team in the Eastern Conference when this trade went down. But instead, we have what looks like complete discombobulation out there. There is a lack of trust, a lack of rhythm, a lack of consistency. So a lot needs to change with this Magic team. And I think a lot of it falls on the coach, right? Despite Paolo taking a lot of heat at the moment. But as the best player on this team, Paolo needs to rally the troops. He needs to be more consistent. He's proven to be slightly inconsistent over the course of his short career. Granted, like we just pretty much talked about throughout this conversation, the Magic as a whole have been somewhat inconsistent. And that's what was so exciting about the season, is that you finally have this fully healthy team, this evolved team. Paolo's in his third year, Suggs is in his fifth year. Franz played in Eurobasket all summer and was working on that 3-point shot. It's a shame that this is not working. Now, I think it's too soon to be having um these discussions about Paolo, right? And these comments, like I said, they're just a bit egregious, especially given what's going on with Desmond Bain, especially given how much, money the Magic are spending on Paolo and Franz, etc. Or rather, that's why these conversations are being had the way that they're had, because it is a bit concerning when you look at the Magic's future. But the further we get into the season, the worse this criticism is going to be, the louder it's going to get. So hopefully they figure it out really soon. They have 2 days off, thank goodness. Hopefully they regroup, they do some soul searching. They play their first NBA Cup game this Friday against the Celtics at home. So that's exciting. I'm excited to see the court. But the schedule only gets harder from there. So Essentially, it is now or never with this team. And maybe we will talk about this at a later time. So make sure you have your notifications turned on as well so you don't miss these upcoming videos. We will talk about whether or not Jamahl Mosley is in the hot seat. It's not so much about the Magic's record as much as it's about what our eyes are seeing, the product on the floor. Guys, it does not look good. And before this thing unravels, the Magic need to get it together. So stay locked in with us here at Magic Digest. Make sure you're subscribed. Again, go ahead, run to those comments, just let out all your frustrations, and I will catch you all next video.